Hey everybody, on Saturday in Brooklyn, New York at the Barclays Center, it is a big one. It is going to be Devin Haney against Ryan Garcia for the WBC 140-pound championship. Joining me is a man right now who has called so many world championship fights, so many huge fights. Of course, that is the HBO Sports former play-by-play man, Jim Lampley. How are you this morning, Jim?
Very well, Kevin. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm really looking forward to this fight. This is going to be an amazing fight, I think. If, and I say this is a big if, we get Ryan Garcia right there, mentally ready to go.
Well, I'm glad to hear that you're really looking forward to the fight. And maybe you should beat the drums a little harder for all of your friends and followers, because the reports out of New York are that ticket sales are crashing, that in terms of live gate and perhaps pay-per-view buys, it's expected to become a thudding disappointment. This is kind of the realm in boxing. We hear this kind of thing all the time. And then sometimes there's a groundswell of interest in the closing days, and all of that turns out to be failed doomsday prophecy. But I'm interested to know what you think about the public buildup going in and the question of whether this is really an electrifying attraction. I have to wonder why the fight is in Brooklyn, given that these are two Southern California fighters, or one Northern California fighter and one Southern California fighter. Either way, it seems to be highly questionable that the fight is taking place in Brooklyn. Do you agree?
I agree with you. I mean, the tickets, they lowered the ticket prices last week. If you had looked at the ticket map at the Barclays Center, and you see the heat map of tickets were available, the entire arena was available. And, you know, I think that was just a gross miscalculation, number one. And number two, you are correct that the fight was a West Coast fight, and I think a Las Vegas fight. Haney lives in Las Vegas. He is from San Francisco. Ryan Garcia from Southern California. This was a Vegas fight, right? Right now, there's not a lot of natural Vegas fights. This is a Vegas fight that for some reason a promoter, Oscar De La Hoya, who lives in Las Vegas, or he lives in Henderson, Nevada, a suburb of Las Vegas, would put in Brooklyn. I don't quite get that. But I don't even think that's the issue, Jim. I think what the issue here is Ryan Garcia has been sabotaging this fight with bizarre social media posts, right, going on. But if we look at what's going on with the two athletes, if they are at the top of their games and if they both come in, I think on paper, this is a phenomenal fight. This is a fight that I was really looking forward to when it was first talked about and when it was first made. And I only think the decline came, A, with the miscalculation by the promoters in terms of the venue and the ticket prices, and even more so, B, with Ryan Garcia's social media exploits that were just beyond belief.
Well, within the last few days, for instance, Garcia has been attacking Errol Spence, former client apparently of Derek James, with whom Garcia is now working, and picking on Spence for bad-mouthing, in his view, James after the loss to Terrence Crawford. And immediately what comes to mind is, why is this Garcia's business, and why would that be his focus at this moment going into the fight?
I wrote, Jim, and I stand by this, and I think it's a mistake. If you really care about Ryan Garcia, which, let's be honest here, the people involved do not care about Ryan Garcia, right? Oscar De La Hoya does not care about Ryan Garcia, the person. He cares about how much money is going to come in at the box office and how a fight of this caliber may boost Golden Boy. That's what he cares about. He does not care about Ryan Garcia. But if you care about Ryan Garcia, and if you just have humanity, you have to look at this kid. And I think there's a cry for help going on here, right? That's what I see going on. He is a very skilled, very talented boxer. And I think in my mind, when he is right, he is one of the very best in the world. But you cannot say he is right at this stage of his career, and we're putting him into a high pressure situation against a guy. You know, they're both 25-year-olds. They're both 5'8". Their reach is very similar. Garcia has one loss. Haney has no losses. There's a lot of similarities between them. But Haney is a professional, a cool customer. And then on the other side, you have Ryan Garcia, and I don't know what to call him. I think the best thing I would call him, and see if you agree with this word, is I would just call him a troubled young man.
Well, he's either a troubled young man or a social media entertainer with a particular view of what constitutes an attractive firestorm on social media. But either way, none of it suggests a laser focus on the fight itself and a devoted attention to what is the style advantage or the tactical advantage that can make him, Ryan Garcia, the winner of the fight. We know, you and I, that they met 6 times as amateurs. We know that the official record with regard to that is 3 wins apiece. But we also know going into this fight that the one with a proven boxing credential is Devin Haney, who happens to have on his resume a decision victory over Vasiliy Lomachenko. I think of Lomachenko as the premier boxing tactician of the last 20 to 30 years. So for a young fighter like Haney to have a victory on his resume against a fighter like Vasiliy Lomachenko automatically, in my view, makes him the favorite in this fight against Garcia, who has no such credential and who did run into trouble in his fight against Tank Davis. Now, we should point out Devin Haney hasn't fought Tank Davis. And who knows, maybe if he fought Tank Davis, he'd have a problem too. But we do know for a fact that Tank Davis deposited Garcia on his back with a shot to the liver or near the liver, and Garcia was not able to get up.
You know, I think when you look at Ryan going into that, he was the one that made that Tank Davis fight happen, right? He beat Javier Fortuna, knocked him out for the 10 count. Fortuna was a tough guy. He was knocked down, I think, 4 times in the fight. Garcia really looked good. That was in July of 22, and I think that was peak Ryan Garcia. And Ryan, unfortunately, throughout his career has faced mental health challenges, and he's had time off in his career because of that. But I give him a lot of credit. He made the Davis fight happen, said, I can win this fight. This is the fight I want. And you know how the politics of boxing are, Jim. And there was a point where even though the fight was agreed to, all of a sudden they tried to get Tank Davis to fight somebody else. And Ryan Garcia said, no, this is the fight I'm taking. He made that happen. But I think then that's when really problems for him in the ring began. And that's what my concern would be. But if you covered the Tyson Buster Douglas fight, I believe, in Tokyo, correct?
Correct.
And Mike was going around Tokyo and he was not paying attention to Buster Douglas. And I think the Japanese treated Mike like a sideshow attraction, right? As he was going around town that week, and he wasn't focused on the fight. And that's what I see with Ryan Garcia. But if Ryan thinks he's playing us, and then this is all some sort of elaborate ruse, then we may see the man step up and perform.
It's quite possible. Ryan Garcia is looking for a form of redemption after his loss to Tank Davis. The trainer, Derek James, is looking for redemption after Errol Spence's loss to Terrence Crawford. Maybe together they make magic because of their devoted attention to redeeming themselves for past difficulties. We've seen that happen in boxing, or we could see some kind of repeat of the same thing. The one thing that seems clear to me is that Haney is basically a boxer who can punch, and unless he's presented with a sort of obvious opportunity to attack Garcia and knock him out, he's going to be looking to score a unanimous decision victory.
Yeah, I think what we're going to see, Jim, is Devin Haney fight the way he fought against Regis Prograis. He was a little more aggressive against Regis Prograis than maybe he was against Lomachenko. And I think, you described Lomachenko as a technician, and I think Haney was a little careful because Haney is a technician. So I think Haney just wanted to be cautious the way he fought Lomachenko, but he was aggressive against Regis Prograis, and that paid off. And I think, when Devin Haney fights that style of fight, that's when he is at his best. And I have him right now at KevinIole.com as number 4 pound for pound. And I think that if he had more power, if he showed his more power more consistently, he might even be higher. I mean, this kid has a lot of talent, and I like the way he carries himself. I think that the thing here too is that he's going in filled with confidence, and you have to wonder, forget all the other stuff that we just talked about. If you just say, hey, Ryan Garcia went into the Tank Davis fight totally normally, totally ready to go, and he got knocked out, how does he come back? Now, I know he's had a fight in between against Oscar Duarte, but how does he come back in this next big fight against Devin Haney, knowing, hey, I got knocked out the last time, and I'm fighting a 31-0 guy who just was the undisputed lightweight champ and moved up to win a 140-pound championship? Do you think that fighters let me ask you, because you've been around him as long as I have, longer than I have. Do you think the fighters think that way? Like, do you think Garcia is looking at Haney and looking at his last performance and saying, this guy is amazing?
It seems to me that what Garcia is looking at is how can I get the most visits to my social media site today? What is it I can say that's most outrageous? What persona can I portray that's most going to attract likes or hits to my social media? And on from there to the next day. It doesn't strike me from what I've seen and read that Ryan Garcia is laser focused on how do I win this fight? And I think he's kind of caught between identities here in a fight against Devin Haney. Can I outbox Devin Haney, who has a decision win over Vasiliy Lomachenko? Can I knock Devin Haney out when I am not known to be a one-punch, lights out, destroy you kind of fighter in there? What is the right way to go? I think that kind of not necessarily identity crisis, but identity challenge going into the fight may show up in an inability to really pull the trigger in the ring once it gets in there.
You know, I think Garcia can punch, and I would describe him as a boxer puncher. I think he's quick, and I think he has some pop in his hands, as he's shown throughout his career. He's 24-1 with 20 knockouts, and speed is power, and I think he has a lot of that speed, and he generates power from that speed. But I think it's going to be, in order to use that power, he's going to be able to have to touch Devin Haney. And I don't know that at this point, you know, he's focused enough on the fight to break Haney down. And, you know, you're going to have to create openings and that type of thing to be able to get to Devin Haney. And I am not sure he does that. But let's say this. If both guys are right, what do you think each of them needs to do? To me, and I'll start this way. I'll throw this out there. I think Ryan Garcia has to absolutely have a jab working. Jab with that jabber, because you know Devin Haney is going to jab back at him. And I think he has to have that jab going in Devin Haney's face throughout this fight, 3 minutes of every round. If he's going to win this fight, to me, that is the most important punch in the fight for him.
Well, I agree totally with that. And one of the reasons I would say that is that I think that at the end of the day, Garcia is, you say he has punching talent. I see him as mostly a left hook puncher. And the best way to set up a left hook is to make your jab work over and over and over, so that eventually the opponent is looking for the jab and doesn't see the left hook coming. So that would be one really positive objective for Garcia to establish in his mind. I think in Haney's case, it's make it a boxing match, and make it a boxing match in my favor until the moment when Garcia makes a mistake that sets up an opportunity to hurt him with a power punch.
I think it's going to be an interesting fight. As long as Ryan Garcia can get himself together, I'm going to go with Devin Haney by decision here. I think that's what your pick is. I agree that Devin Haney is the better fighter. I think that he is the more professional fighter. He's carried himself as a professional throughout. And I love what Devin Haney and his father, Bill Haney, are doing. You know, Bill Haney at the press conferences and in the media appearances, he kind of plays the crazy guy, right? He'll say the wild things. He reminds me a little bit of Floyd Mayweather Sr., when Floyd Mayweather had De La Hoya and Mayweather Jr. You know, just he'll say some outrageous things. He'll get the other side upset, but he knows what he's doing. I think those are calculated moments. And Devin is just the epitome of professionalism, and he comes ready to fight, and then when he delivers on fight night. You know, with Ryan, I just, you know, you just never know what you're going to get, I guess is the way I would describe that.
Yeah, I think Devin Haney's career up to this point demonstrates that Bill Haney is serious business. And he understands how to train a fighter not to go overboard and try to exceed his limitations, but rather than to fight within the most advantageous envelope for him. And for Devin, that means box, and then box again, because he's very good at it.
It is on Saturday at the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Jim will be there ringside. You can do a live chat with Jim and a cast of thousands. I think Chris Algieri, Dan Canobio, I believe Lance Puckmeyer will be jumping in with you guys on payperview.com. Believe me, I have done that. It is a fun chat. Jim, in fact, is great. A legend in the sport of boxing, a Hall of Famer. If you have questions for Jim, put those in through the chat, and you will be able to talk directly to the man himself. Jim, it's going to be a fun one. People can get it on payperview.com. I appreciate you helping me break it down.
I hope there's a last-minute explosion of ticket sales. I hope that there is a global tsunami of pay-per-view sales, and that people pay attention to what could be a very close and entertaining fight.
Let's hope you are right. That is Jim Lampley, everybody. I'm Kevin Iole. Appreciate you joining me.